At 36,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, a deafening bang tore through the cabin. The aircraft jolted violently, the autopilot disconnected, and in a matter of seconds, a Boeing 777 carrying 378 souls was banking hard, 40 degrees to the right, completely out of control. From the cockpit, one thing was immediately clear. The right engine was gone, not shut down, gone. The vibrations were so intense, the instruments blurred. The crew couldn't see what they were dealing with. There was no time to second guess. They declared a mayday. But as the aircraft descended, dragging a shattered engine across the sky, the captain made a call no checklist could prepare him for 39 minutes, one crippled jet, and a cockpit crew fighting against failure. Would training, composure, and human instinct be enough to land this plane? Let's take it back to where it all began. It was supposed to be a standard trans-Pacific journey. On the morning of February 13th, 2018, United Airlines Flight 1175 pushed back from the gate at San Francisco International Airport. At the controls was Captain Christopher Behnam, 57 years old, with over 13,000 flight hours. First Officer Paul Ayres, 60, had logged over 11,000 hours, nearly all of them on the Boeing 777. Seated behind them in the jump seat was off-duty United pilot Ed Gagarin, an experienced 777 first officer hitching a ride to Honolulu. Their aircraft, a 23-year-old Boeing 777-222, registered N773UA, had performed thousands of takeoffs and landings. Beneath each wing, a massive Pratt & Whitney PW4077 turbofan engine generated over 90,000 pounds of thrust. Flight 1175 climbed smoothly to cruising altitude, flight level 360, 36,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean. The aircraft leveled off, the seatbelt signs switched off, and the crew settled in for the long, quiet leg to Honolulu. There was no warning, no anomaly in the engine gauges, no unusual vibrations, until suddenly everything changed. At 11:58 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, 120 miles from Honolulu, the silence shattered. A sudden, deafening bang. The airframe lurched, the autopilot instantly disengaged, and the aircraft rolled 40 degrees to the right. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared, the control column shook violently, and on the engine indication and crew alerting system, one engine was dead. The second engine, mounted on the right wing, had suffered a catastrophic failure. It wasn't just a shutdown, it was disintegration. All readings, N1 fan speed, oil pressure, engine pressure ratio, flatlined. On the right side of the aircraft, severe vibration coursed through the fuselage. Something was terribly wrong, and it was getting worse. The captain took control. Positive exchange, a standard but critical handoff under emergency conditions. As First Officer Ayres backed him up, Captain Behnam fought to steady the aircraft manually. Within 2 minutes, they made the call. Mayday, mayday, mayday. United 1175 declaring emergency. But no checklist in any manual had prepared them for what was coming next. Despite shutting down the failed engine, the vibrations didn't stop. Something was still affecting the aircraft's aerodynamic stability. Captain Behnam looked over to the jump seat. Ed Gagarin was still strapped in, watching the chaos unfold. That's when the captain made an unconventional decision. Go back. Look at the engine. Tell us what you see. Gagarin moved through the cabin. As he approached the right windows, passengers near rows 20 and 21 pointed outside, wide-eyed. The entire outer casing of the engine gone. The engine cowling had ripped off. The fan blades were exposed. What remained of the nacelle was oscillating violently, fluttering against the airstream at 500 miles per hour. Gagarin returned with a stunning report. And a video. The visual confirmation was critical. The crew now understood they weren't just dealing with engine failure. This was a structural emergency. And the longer they stayed in the air, the more the damaged engine threatened to destabilize the aircraft entirely. They had to descend, fast. The 777 began a steady descent toward Honolulu. From flight level 360, the crew aimed for flight level 230, 23,000 feet. But the aircraft was not gliding like it should. The drag from the missing cowling was immense. Flight 1175 was pulling harder to the right than expected. The right wing, aerodynamically compromised, was almost unflyable. The flight crew compensated by reducing thrust on the left engine, but that meant less lift, less margin. Even with one engine operating, the aircraft was dropping faster than normal drift-down calculations predicted. And all the while, the airframe trembled. Every action had to be deliberate, every decision calculated. The purser was briefed. The passengers were told to stay seated. Behind the flight deck door, precision was the only thing holding them in the sky. Meanwhile, the scale of mechanical failure was still unfolding. When investigators later examined the aircraft, they found fragments of titanium embedded in the fuselage. Debris from the shattered engine had punctured the skin of the aircraft, just inches below the passenger windows. The fan blade at the center of the failure, blade number 11, had experienced a full-length fatigue fracture. This wasn't a sudden break. It was a slow, invisible crack deep within the blade's hollow titanium structure. And here's the alarming part. That fan blade had been inspected twice before, both times using a high-tech method called thermal acoustic imaging, a process meant to detect subsurface flaws. Both times, the crack had been missed, not because the technology failed, but because the inspection system failed. The inspectors weren't properly trained, they had no feedback loop, and the system itself was still classified by Pratt & Whitney as emerging technology, which meant no formal certification process was in place. The blade passed inspection. It shouldn't have. Back in the sky, the crew of Flight 1175 was navigating the unknown. They debated using fuel crossfeed, but delayed until they were below 10,000 feet. They discussed approach speed, flaps at 20 degrees, landing at 145 knots, faster than normal, but necessary to maintain control. Captain Behnam calculated every variable in real time: airspeed, altitude, distance. He delayed deploying the landing gear to reduce drag. One wrong move could destabilize the aircraft beyond recovery. The jump seat pilot, Gagarin, continued to assist, functioning as a third pair of eyes and ears. Every voice in that cockpit was focused, composed, and aligned. This was crew resource management at its highest level. At 12:34 p.m., they spotted Honolulu International. 3 minutes later, the landing gear came down. One final systems check. The right wing was still underperforming. The drag was still pulling. But they were committed now. Runway in sight. Winds favorable. No margin for error. At 12:37 p.m., the Boeing 777 touched down, firm but safe. They had made it. Not a single injury among the 363 passengers and 15 crew members. The aircraft taxied to the gate under its own power. Only after the engines were shut down did the crew breathe. They found more than just a fractured blade. They uncovered a systemic failure in how fan blades were inspected and how inspection technology was managed. Pratt & Whitney had not implemented a formal training program for thermal acoustic imaging. Inspectors weren't certified. There was no structured oversight, and there was no system for reviewing and learning from incorrect results. The crack in blade number 11 had been present twice during previous overhauls, and it had been missed both times. Additionally, Boeing engineers noted that the nacelle structure, the outer housing of the engine, had failed under stress. The fan case itself, wrapped in Kevlar, had largely done its job, but the cowling and inlet duct, made of carbon fiber, detached far too easily, leading to greater drag, instability, and debris damage. That forced Boeing to re-engineer those components, and it forced the FAA to act. Emergency airworthiness directives were issued. Inspections of PW4000 engines were accelerated. Design requirements were re-evaluated. Flight 1175 had revealed not just a mechanical flaw, but a gap in the safety net meant to catch it. In 2020, the Airline Pilots Association awarded Captain Behnam, First Officer Ayres, and Ed Gagarin the Superior Airmanship Award. It's one of the highest honors in aviation, and it's rarely given, but in this case, it was earned. The crew had held together a damaged, unbalanced, and aerodynamically unstable aircraft for nearly 40 minutes without losing their grip. They had gone beyond checklists, improvising safely when no rulebook applied. They had communicated constantly, made precise decisions, and brought everyone home. Their performance was not only praised within aviation circles, but studied in training rooms around the world. Flight 1175 became a case study in crew resource management, how leadership, collaboration, and clarity under pressure can make the difference between tragedy and survival. It reinforced the value of having a deeply experienced team in the cockpit and the necessity of training pilots not just to follow procedure, but to think beyond it. United Airlines Flight 1175 is more than an incident report. It's a masterclass in calm under chaos, and a powerful reminder that even in the age of automation, human skill is irreplaceable. If you found this story informative and gained a deeper appreciation for what goes on behind the cockpit door, consider supporting the channel. A like helps more people discover these important stories. And if you'd like to see more real-life aviation breakdowns, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.